The first time I died, my name was written on a disciplinary report beside the words coordinated academic misconduct, and the girl who had copied every answer for my paper cried so beautifully the principal offered her water before he offered me a chair. Her name was Elise, and by finals week everyone at Belmont Senior College already knew what she was supposed to be: charming, brilliant under pressure, a little careless with rules because gifted people get bored, but never dishonest. I was supposed to be the quiet one, the scholarship girl, the one who sat front left in every exam, sharpened 3 pencils before the bell, and wrote working so neatly teachers used my papers as examples. That was exactly why Elise chose me. She did not need to understand chemistry, calculus, or legal studies if she could understand me. My handwriting, my timing, my habit of circling questions to return to later, the way I wrote tiny check marks beside answers I felt unsure about, even the way I tapped my left thumb when I found a shortcut. She turned my discipline into her answer key. And on the final mathematics paper of my first life, when the invigilator found that our answer booklets matched line for line, including the same crossed-out method on question 12 and the same wrong unit on question 16, Elise looked at me with wet eyes and said, "Mara, why would you do this to me?" I was too shocked to defend myself properly. That is one of the most humiliating truths about being framed. You think innocence will arrive like armor, but sometimes it arrives like a locked door in your throat. In my first life, I stammered. I repeated, I didn't copy, which sounded stupid because nobody had accused me of copying first. The evidence was worse than simple similarity. Elise's paper looked like mine, but cleaner in the places that mattered. My working had scratch marks because I actually struggled through the problems. Hers had the same final answers, the same structure, the same occasional phrasing, but fewer hesitations, as if she had calmly written what I had produced under pressure. When the deputy principal asked how that could happen if she had copied me, Elise lowered her face into both hands and whispered, maybe she wanted it to look like I copied, so she could beat me for rank. There it was. Motive, delivered in a broken voice. I had been ranked first all year. Elise was third and rising. The top mathematics award, the STEM scholarship nomination, and the school's final academic medal depended on finals week. People did not need to understand the mechanics of cheating when jealousy made a simpler story. Nobody asked the right questions. Nobody asked why Elise had insisted on sitting 2 rows behind me for every practice exam. Nobody asked why her marks were ordinary on in-class quizzes where seating changed, then suddenly brilliant on formal papers where she could predict my location. Nobody asked why she owned a silver compact mirror she always set open on her desk for anxiety grounding, or why her water bottle had a reflective metal base polished like a coin. Nobody asked why she finished 2 minutes after me every time. They asked why I looked nervous. They asked why I had erased working on question 12. They asked whether the pressure of maintaining rank had become overwhelming. Mr. Vane, our mathematics teacher, said with careful disappointment that he had always admired my potential, but had recently noticed competitive strain. Competitive strain meant I stopped lending Elise my summary sheets after she lost them twice. Competitive strain meant I looked away when she called me her study twin in front of teachers. Competitive strain meant I had finally begun to sense the cage, but not soon enough to leave before the door closed. The investigation ruined me without ever needing to prove the whole story. Both of us received 0 for the final mathematics paper pending review. Elise's parents hired an education advocate who wrote letters full of words like procedural fairness and emotional distress. My mother wrote emails after night shifts with spelling mistakes because she was exhausted and furious and could not afford professional outrage. The school, trapped between a wealthy family and a scholarship student with no proof except truth, chose the old institutional favorite: mutual responsibility. Elise's 0 was later replaced with an estimated grade due to insufficient evidence of intentional wrongdoing. Mine remained under review long enough for the scholarship deadline to pass. The award went to another student. Elise recovered. I did not. By graduation, she had become a survivor of a toxic academic rivalry. I became the cautionary tale teachers described without naming when they warned students not to let pressure destroy integrity. The worst moment was not the report. It was the library a month later when I saw Elise tutoring a Year 10 girl in algebra. She was sitting by the window, sunlight in her hair, smiling gently as she explained a method I had taught her 2 weeks before she used it against me. On the table beside her sat the silver compact mirror, open and shining. She saw me watching. For 1 second, no tears, no trembling, no sweet confusion. Just a small smile. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough to tell me she remembered everything and feared nothing. I left the library shaking so badly, I dropped my books on the stairs. That winter, when my scholarship withdrawal became final and my mother had to move us to a cheaper apartment outside the district, I took a job cleaning classrooms after hours. One evening, while emptying bins in the exam hall where it had happened, I found a broken piece of mirrored plastic under a desk. The reflection caught my face in 100 tiny fragments. I remember thinking, this is what she used. This is what beat me. Then the old heater behind the stage sparked. Smoke thickened before I understood. The emergency exit near the storage room was jammed, a maintenance issue reported and ignored. I breathed in once, twice, tried to crawl, and the last thing I saw before the dark was my own reflection scattered across the floor. When I opened my eyes again, I was staring at question 1 of the same final mathematics paper. Not a practice version. Not a memory. The real paper. The one that had destroyed me. My pencil rested in my right hand. The exam hall stretched around me in terrifying clarity. Rows of desks, high windows, winter sun, Mr. Vane pacing near the front, Ms. Rowe the deputy sitting at the invigilator table, a clock reading 9:18 a.m. finals week. Mathematics final. 2 hours and 10 minutes remaining. My heart lurched so violently I almost scratched a line through the page. For a moment, the room vanished under smoke. I tasted ash. My fingers clawed at the desk as if looking for the floor. Then someone behind me coughed softly twice. Elise. Her signal from the first life. She used to cough when she needed me to shift my arm because my working blocked the view. I had thought it was allergies. Dead girls learn quickly. Alive girls learn faster. I did not write the answer to question 1. I wrote nothing. My pencil hovered above the blank working space, while every instinct screamed at me to solve, perform, protect my rank, save my future. But I had returned not the morning before finals, not the week before, not with enough time to gather evidence or report suspicion. I had returned inside the trap, after the bell, with Elise already seated behind me and the invigilators already believing this was an ordinary exam. If I wrote the paper normally, she would copy me again. If I turned around and accused her, I would look unstable before anything happened. If I covered my page too obviously, she would adjust, invent, cry later. There was only one thing she could not prepare for because it violated everything she believed about me. Mara Santos, first-ranked scholarship student, did not leave tests blank. Mara Santos did not sacrifice marks. Mara Santos did not choose uncertainty over control. So I placed my pencil down, folded my hands in my lap, and stared at the white page until the panic behind me began to breathe. The first 10 minutes were agony. Not because doing nothing was easy. Doing nothing in an exam hall when your future has been trained to live inside marks feels like holding your hand over a flame and calling it strategy. I knew the answers. That made it worse. Question 1. A simple derivative. Question 2. Probability tree. Question 3. Trigonometric identity. My brain solved them automatically, offering results like nervous gifts. I refused them. Behind me, Elise shifted. Chair leg, soft scrape. Another cough. I did not move my arm because there was nothing to see. I imagined her leaning slightly, catching the blank page in her mirror, her confidence snagging. Maybe she thought I was reading first. I always read the whole paper before starting, though never for this long. At 14 minutes, she tapped her pencil twice. That was new. At 16, she turned a page too loudly, pretending progress for the invigilators. At 20, I heard the first real sign of fear. Her breathing lost rhythm. At 23 minutes, Mr. Vane paused beside my desk. I felt him before I saw him. that teacherly shadow falling across the page. His eyes dropped to my blank answer booklet. "Mara," he whispered, low enough not to disturb others, "are you all right?" In my first life, that question came after the accusation, too late and too small. This time, it arrived while my paper was still clean. I looked up slowly. "Yes, sir." His brow furrowed. "You haven't started." "I know. Do you need the nurse?" "No," he hesitated. "Teachers can handle crying, panic, even cheating better than calm refusal. You should begin." "I will." He moved on reluctantly, but not before glancing behind me. Elise had bent over her paper so quickly she looked almost folded in half. Good. Let him see the contrast. Let him remember it later. At 30 minutes, I wrote my name on the cover page, and nothing else. That small act almost broke me. My name on emptiness. My future attached to blankness. But the plan, if I could call desperation a plan, had formed fully now. I could not expose Elise by proving she copied my correct answers. That had failed once. I had to expose her dependence before the matching papers existed. A blank paper was not a trap by itself. Elise could write her own answers badly and claim nerves. But Elise had not studied enough to survive alone, and she was too proud to hand in weakness. She would need a source. If I gave her nothing, she would either panic visibly or copy from another student. Either way, her pattern would change. More importantly, I remembered the emergency procedure from the first life. When our papers matched, Ms. Rowe collected the answer booklets and checked seating, timing, and scrap paper. She was not stupid, only late. I needed to make her early. So, at 40 minutes, I raised my hand. Mr. Vane came over, concern now edged with irritation. "Yes," I whispered. "Sir, I think someone behind me keeps trying to see my paper." The words felt dangerous in my mouth. His face tightened. "Who?" I did not look back. "I don't want to accuse anyone during the exam. Can I move seats?" His eyes flicked to my blank paper. "You haven't written anything." "Exactly." That stopped him. He glanced toward Ms. Rowe. She noticed, stood, and walked over. "Problem," she murmured. Mr. Vane explained quietly. Ms. Rowe's eyes moved from my blank booklet to the row behind me. Elise was writing now. Writing fast. Too fast for someone who had spent 40 minutes without a source. Ms. Rowe looked back at me. "Mara, are you making a formal concern?" In my first life, formal concern was a door adults opened after the fire. This time I stepped through it. "Yes, Mississippi. But I'd like to continue the exam from another seat if possible." The room barely noticed the move, which was perfect. Ms. Rowe handled it calmly, as if seating shifts were ordinary. She took my blank answer booklet, my question paper, my calculator, and my pencils herself, then moved me to an empty desk at the front right corner, diagonally away from Elise and everyone else. She placed a new answer booklet in front of me. "Use this one from now on," she whispered. "We'll keep the original attached." I nodded. The clock read 10:04. I had lost 46 minutes. In a 2-hour, 20-minute exam, that was devastating. Not fatal. I had solved half the paper in my head while pretending to do nothing. Fear sharpens memory when it is not busy destroying you. I began writing. I wrote like someone being chased because I was derivative, probability, trig proof, optimization, statistics, financial maths. My hand cramped by the second extended response. I skipped full sentences and used clean working where possible. I made no unnecessary corrections. I did not look back once. But I listened. Behind me, Elise's pencil had slowed, then stopped, then sped in bursts. A chair creaked. A page turned backward. At 10:31, I heard Ms. Rowe walking the aisles more often than before. At 10:42, she stopped behind Elise for a long moment. At 10:45, Elise asked for extra paper. Her voice was too light. At 10:52, Mr. Vane whispered something near the invigilator table and Ms. Rowe replied, "After the exam." My pulse jumped. Something was happening. I forced myself back to the paper. Revenge would not save my mark if I left half the exam unanswered. With 15 minutes left, I reached question 16, The unit conversion problem that ruined me in the first life because both Elise and I wrote the same wrong unit. My hand paused. In the first life, I had written liters per minute instead of milliliters per second after changing a rate too quickly. Elise copied it exactly. This time, the answer was clear. I wrote the correct unit slowly, almost ceremonially. It felt like crossing a bridge after drowning under it. When time was called, my second booklet was full, rushed, imperfect, but alive. My first booklet was blank except for my name. Ms. Rowe collected both personally. Elise handed in her paper with a smile, so bright it looked stapled to her face. We were not released immediately. That was the first public signal. Normally, after finals, everyone poured into the corridor comparing answers, groaning, laughing, performing confidence or despair. This time, Ms. Rowe stood at the front and said, "Students, remain seated for a moment while we check booklet counts." A murmur moved through the hall. Elise sat 2 rows behind me, posture perfect. I could feel her looking at the back of my head. Mr. Vane counted answer booklets with the strained seriousness of a man sensing his morning had become paperwork. Ms. Rowe separated mine into a small pile. Original blank booklet, new booklet, question paper. Then she lifted another paper from the stack and frowned. "Mr. Vane," she said softly. He came over. They looked at it together. I knew before they said anything. Elise had made the mistake desperate cheaters make when the expected source vanishes. She had copied the wrong thing from the wrong person, or she had written around the absence, so strangely the pattern exposed her. Either way, something on her page had betrayed her. Ms. Rowe dismissed the hall row by row, except me, Elise, and a boy named Daniel Cho, who had been seated to Elise's left after my move. Daniel looked terrified, which told me enough. He was brilliant but messy, the kind of student whose working sprawled diagonally and whose final answers were often right even when the path looked like a map drawn during an earthquake. Elise would never choose him as a source if she had any other option. But after I moved, he was the closest high-performing student within mirror range. Ms. Rowe asked the 3 of us to follow her to the conference room. Gasps followed us into the corridor like wind. In the conference room, Ms. Rowe placed 3 answer booklets on the table. Mine. Elise's. Daniel's. Mr. Vane stood by the door, face pale. Daniel kept saying, "I didn't do anything," even before anyone accused him. Elise sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes wide with injured confusion. I had seen that face destroy me once. It had less power when I knew where the seams were. Ms. Rowe spoke first. During the exam, Mara raised a concern about visibility of her paper and was moved. Her original booklet remained blank. After reviewing the papers briefly, we noticed irregular similarities between Elise's booklet and Daniel's working after the seating change. Daniel's mouth fell open. "What?" Elise inhaled sharply. "That's impossible." Ms. Rowe's eyes moved to her. "Is it?" The evidence was not as neat as my first life's disaster, and that made it better. Before 10:04, Elise's answers were inconsistent, half-started, strangely blank in places where my paper had been blank. On question 1, she had written only the derivative notation but not the answer, as if waiting for me to finish. On question 2, she had drawn the start of a probability tree, then abandoned it. On question 3, she wrote the identity incorrectly, erased it, and left the space empty. After I moved, her paper changed. Suddenly, her working began to resemble Daniel's. Not final answers only, but the same unusual layout, the same side calculation boxed halfway up the page, the same mistaken negative sign in question 8 that Daniel later corrected but Elise did not. The strongest part was question 10. Daniel had misread a value as 3.6, written 2 lines of working, crossed it out heavily, then restarted with 3.8. Elise had the same 2 lines using 3.6, but no cross-out explanation, as if the ghost of Daniel's mistake had appeared on her page without context. Elise began crying at exactly the right volume. "I don't understand what's happening," she whispered. I barely looked up. I was so anxious after Mara moved. Everyone was staring. Mr. Vane softened automatically. I saw it and felt the old rage stir. Tears still worked on him. Ms. Rowe did not soften. Mara's concern was raised before any similarities with Daniel could exist. Her original booklet was blank. Why would she move seats if the goal was to copy from you or create confusion? Elise shook her head, tears falling. Maybe she planned it. Maybe she wanted to make me look suspicious. There was again the old sentence wearing new clothes. I looked at Ms. Rowe and said nothing. Silence can be useful when the lie is busy overreaching. Daniel found his voice. Miss, I swear I didn't help her. I didn't even know she could see my paper. I know, Ms. Rowe said, and his whole body sagged with relief. Elise's tears paused. Just a fraction. She had expected mutual suspicion. Ms. Rowe continued, This is not an accusation against you, Daniel. Your paper shows continuous independent working. Elise's paper shows abrupt alignment with your working only after Mara was moved. Mr. Vane rubbed his forehead. Elise, did you at any point view Daniel's paper? No. Did you view Mara's? No. Her voice cracked beautifully. Why is everyone assuming I did something? Because I handed in a blank test, I thought. Because the mirror finally reflected you instead of me. Ms. Rowe asked to inspect personal items from the exam desks. Elise objected immediately. Not loudly. Politely. Is that allowed without my parents? Ms. Rowe replied, You may call them before any formal interview, but during an exam integrity check, we can secure materials present on the desk. The word secure changed the room. Mr. Vane collected the items from the exam hall under Ms. Rowe's direction. Calculators, pencil cases, water bottles, approved watches, Elise's silver compact mirror. When it appeared in the clear evidence tray, my stomach turned. The same mirror, the same shining mouth of the trap. Elise's face went white. That's for anxiety, she said quickly. My therapist recommended grounding objects. Maybe true. Maybe weaponized truth. Ms. Rowe picked it up, opened it, and angled it under the conference room light. From where I sat, I could see the far side of the table reflected clearly. Mr. Vane's expression changed slowly. He looked older all at once. The water bottle was worse. Its base was metal, polished so smoothly that when Ms. Rowe tilted it, the room bent inside it. Not a perfect mirror. Good enough. Combined with the compact, good enough to catch a page 2 rows ahead, if the angle was right. Ms. Rowe did not accuse immediately. She did something better. She asked Elise to sit in her exam seat again while the hall was empty. She placed Daniel's paper where his desk had been, my blank booklet where mine had been, and Elise's items exactly where they had been found. Then she asked Mr. Vane to stand behind Elise's seat and look through the compact angle. He did. His face tightened. You can see Daniel's desk, he said quietly. And, before Mara moved? Ms. Rowe asked. He adjusted the mirror. You could see Mara's. The words entered the room like cold water. Elise's parents arrived within 30 minutes, which told everyone more about power than punctuality. Mrs. Marrow wore a cream coat and outrage like perfume. Mr. Marrow carried a folder before he knew what papers he needed, a man prepared to litigate whether. They greeted Elise as if she had been injured in a traffic accident, then turned to the school with controlled fury. Our daughter is being humiliated during finals week because another student made a vague claim? Mrs. Marrow said. In my first life, that kind of adult confidence had crushed my mother's exhausted emails. This time, Ms. Rowe had a blank booklet, shifted seating, irregular patterns, item angles, and Daniel's testimony. Not perfect proof yet. Enough to prevent the rich parent fog machine from filling the room. My mother arrived 20 minutes later still in her pharmacy uniform, hair pulled back badly, eyes fierce. When she saw me, she touched my face with both hands like she was checking I had returned from somewhere. Maybe part of her knew. Mothers notice when their daughters become haunted overnight. Are you all right? She asked. I nodded. I handed in the first booklet blank. Her eyebrows shot up. You what? It was the first time all morning I nearly laughed. I'll explain. Elise's mother overheard and pounced. She admits she behaved abnormally. This could be a stunt. My mother turned slowly. She is not tall, my mother. She is not polished. But she has worked nights beside people who think exhaustion makes women weak, and she can make silence feel like a locked gate. My daughter's abnormal behavior seems to have caught your daughter's normal behavior, she said. The room went very quiet. I loved her so much I almost forgot to breathe.
The school did not decide that day.
Schools hate deciding while parents are watching. They separated us, collected statements, secured the items, and allowed both families to leave with formal notices. But finals week was not over, and that mattered. Elise had other exams. Biology, Wednesday, legal studies Thursday, chemistry Friday. In my first life, after the mathematics accusation, I was removed from remaining exams and given supervised alternatives too late to matter. Elise continued under sympathy. This time, Ms. Rowe arranged new exam protocols before anyone could object. Random seating, no personal reflective items on desks, water bottles placed on the floor, calculators checked, all students given privacy screens for finals. The announcement went to the whole grade Tuesday morning without naming anyone. Everyone knew anyway. Rumor loves gaps, but this time the gap had teeth. Someone used a mirror. Someone copied Daniel. Mara handed in a blank paper. That last part spread fastest because it sounded insane. Let it. Insane strategies are harder to prepare against. Elise tried to reclaim the story during lunch. She sat at her usual table, surrounded by girls who looked worried and thrilled, while she dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I just don't understand why Mara would do this during finals, she said loudly enough for nearby tables. I've always admired her. I guess pressure changes people. In my first life, I would have avoided the cafeteria. This time, I sat 2 tables away with Anika and Daniel. Daniel had attached himself to me after the conference room with the loyalty of a person who nearly got framed by proximity. She's doing the voice, he muttered. What voice? Anika asked. I donate to injured birds' voice. I laughed into my sandwich. Elise heard. Her eyes flicked toward me, sharp as pins. I lifted my chocolate milk in a tiny toast. Not victory. Warning. The biology final on Wednesday became the second exposure. Not because I set a trap, but because Elise had spent years cheating in ways the new protocols disrupted.
She was not stupid.
That was the thing people misunderstood. She knew enough to pass. But she did not know enough to be Elise Marrow, top 3 student, effortless genius, scholarship finalist. Without angles and stolen patterns, she was ordinary under pressure, and ordinary terrified her. In biology, random seating placed her front row beside a student ranked near the bottom. Privacy screens blocked side views. Ms. Rowe personally checked desks. Halfway through, Elise asked to go to the bathroom. Denied unless escorted. She said she felt faint. The nurse checked her in the hallway and cleared her to continue. When marks were later moderated, her biology score fell 22 points below her trial average. One bad exam can happen. 2 patterns make a shadow. Thursday's legal studies final was worse. Elise wrote 3 pages on the wrong case study because she had memorized essay phrases without understanding which prompt they answered. Mr. Hale, the legal studies teacher, looked genuinely shaken when he told Ms. Rowe afterward. This is not her usual standard, he said. No, Ms. Rowe replied, according to Daniel, whose cousin worked office duty and reported everything like a spy novelist. That appears to be the point. By Friday, the whole grade knew Elise was unraveling. Her friends still hovered, but their faces had changed. Sympathy with a question mark is unstable. Teachers no longer softened automatically. The privacy screens remained. Reflective items were banned. The class cheater had not been publicly named, but everyone had started looking at the girl who could no longer perform genius without mirrors. The final chemistry exam was where Elise exposed herself completely. I wish I could claim I planned it. I did not. The best traps sometimes are the ones reality sets after you stop protecting someone from it. Chemistry was our last paper, and the room felt like the end of a war. Students were exhausted, pale, running on caffeine and spite. Seating was random again. I sat back row near the window. Elise sat near the center, 2 desks behind a boy named Theo who had written formulas on his wrist in year 10 and never escaped the reputation, despite being clean for years. Ms. Rowe announced before the paper began that any attempt to view another student's work, communicate, use unauthorized materials, or manipulate seating would result in immediate removal. Her eyes passed over the room and did not pause on Elise. That was more frightening than if they had. It meant she no longer needed to perform suspicion. 40 minutes into chemistry, a metallic clink broke the exam silence. Not loud. Loud enough. A small object rolled from Elise's desk and stopped near the aisle. Everyone looked before they could stop themselves. It was not the compact mirror that had been banned. It was the removable metal lid from her lip balm tin, polished on the inside. For one frozen second, the entire room understood at once. Elise reached down too quickly. Ms. Rowe got there first.
"Leave it," she said.
Elise's hand froze above the floor. It fell out of my pencil case. Ms. Rowe picked it up with 2 fingers. The inside flashed under the lights. Reflective. Small. Desperate. "Your pencil case was checked." Elise's face strained. "I forgot it was in there." "Why was it open on your desk?" "It wasn't. I saw it propped against your eraser," said a voice from the front. Every head turned.
"Teo."
The boy with the old cheating reputation. His face was red, but he kept speaking. She angled it toward my paper. I moved my booklet twice. I didn't want to say anything because he stopped, jaw tight. Because nobody believes the boy with the old cheating reputation over the perfect girl. Because labels stick even after the truth dries. Because cheaters love hiding near people already distrusted. Ms. Rowe's face was calm, but her voice cut through the room. "Elise, stand up. Bring your answer booklet and come with me." Elise looked around. That was when the mask broke, not in tears, not at first, but in panic so raw it made her look younger. "No," she whispered. "No, I can't. I didn't even use it. I was just—" The sentence stopped itself. Just what? Just checking? Just trying? Just doing what she had always done with better equipment? The room waited. Elise's eyes filled. "Mara made everyone think I cheat," she said suddenly, loudly, desperately. "She set this up. She handed in a blank test to make me look crazy, and now everyone is watching me, and I can't think." There it was, in front of the whole chemistry cohort, the confession hidden inside accusation. Everyone now knew I had handed in a blank test. Everyone knew she had reacted not by asking why, but by spiraling through 3 finals without her usual methods. Everyone had just seen a reflective lid on her desk. Blaming me did not save her. It connected the events. Ms. Rowe said, "This is not a discussion. Step outside." Elise stood, shaking. As she passed my row, she looked at me with hatred so naked it felt almost honest. For one second, I saw the girl behind the cheating, terrified, cornered, furious that the world had stopped supplying shortcuts. I did not smile. I did not need to. The whole room had become the mirror. The aftermath came in stages. First, chemistry resumed, because exams are cruel machines and even public scandal gets 5 minutes before students are told to continue. My hands shook so badly, I spilled a few crystals of imaginary titration data across the page, but I finished. Theo finished too. When time was called, half the room seemed to exhale for the first time in 2 hours. In the corridor, nobody rushed to compare answers. They whispered in clusters, eyes wide, voices sharp. She had a mirror tin. Theo saw it. Mara was right. How long has she been doing it? That last question moved through the school like a cold draft. How long? People began replaying years. Elise's sudden improvements. Her seating preferences. Her anxiety objects. Her habit of sitting behind high achievers. Her finishing times. My blank test had not exposed one exam. It had pulled a thread through every performance she had built. The formal review was cleaner this time. Not easy. Clean. Mathematics irregularities. Biology performance drop under controlled conditions. Legal studies mismatch. Chemistry reflective item incident. Theo's witness statement. Ms. Rowe's observations. The mirror angle demonstration, and the blank booklet that proved my first 46 minutes had given her nothing. Elise's parents fought, of course. They argued anxiety accommodations, procedural pressure, reputational harm, possible coincidence, mass hysteria. But the chemistry incident had happened in front of an entire exam room. More importantly, Elise had already shown her dependence across finals week. The school could no longer call it mutual responsibility without looking ridiculous. Elise's mathematics paper was invalidated. Chemistry removed. Prior exams flagged for audit. Her scholarship nomination withdrawn. My mathematics paper was marked from the second booklet with time loss consideration. I did not get a perfect score. I did not need one. I got enough. Enough to keep rank. Enough to keep the scholarship alive. Enough to walk out of the office with my name no longer tied to hers like a hostage. Mr. Vane apologized after the final review meeting. He asked me to stay back in the empty classroom. The same room where he had once looked at me like disappointment was a moral duty. Mara, he said, standing awkwardly beside his desk. I should have noticed patterns earlier. Yes, I thought. You should have. He continued. I mistook consistency for integrity in one student and pressure for instability in another. That was better. Still late. Still small. But better. Why? I asked. He looked startled. People apologize expecting acceptance, not analysis. Why did you? He rubbed his forehead. Elise was socially confident. Teachers saw her often. She asked questions. She seemed engaged. And I didn't. You did. But quietly. Quietly. There it was. The old crime. I had been honest in a lower volume. Quiet students can be telling the truth, I said. Yes, he replied. I know that now. I believed he meant it. I also wished I had not had to burn one life and nearly fail a final for him to learn. Theo found me outside the library the day after chemistry. He stood with his backpack over one shoulder, looking uncomfortable in the way boys do when they want to say something sincere but would rather fight a vending machine. Thanks, he said. For what? For making them watch properly. I shook my head. You spoke up, only because you did first. That hit me harder than expected. In my first life, I thought saving myself was a private thing. In the second, I began to understand that refusing a lie can open a door for people trapped under different versions of it. Theo had carried an old mistake for 2 years while everyone treated suspicion as part of his face. Elise had chosen him in chemistry because she thought nobody would believe him. He was believed because the room had been trained by then to look twice. I'm glad you said something, I told him. He nodded, then smiled faintly. Also, handing in a blank test is insane. I laughed. I know. Respectfully insane. I'll take it. Elise did not return for graduation rehearsal. Her locker was cleared by her mother on a Tuesday afternoon while students pretended not to stare. I saw Mrs. Marrow carrying a box of textbooks, her mouth tight, eyes refusing everyone. Elise waited in the car outside, face turned toward the window. For a moment, I remembered the library smile from my first life, that tiny private cruelty. This version of Elise did not smile. She looked like a girl watching a future shrink around her. I expected satisfaction to rise. It did, a little. I am not saintly enough to deny that. But beside it came something heavier. Not pity exactly. Maybe recognition of waste. Elise had intelligence. Not the kind she pretended, not the effortless genius she performed, but enough. Enough to learn, fail, improve, survive honestly. She had spent that intelligence building mirrors instead of foundations. It seemed like a stupid tragedy. Most cruelty is. Graduation came with winter sunlight and a new exam policy printed in every parent newsletter. Reflective objects prohibited, randomized seating, privacy screens for high-stakes assessments, stronger review procedures for answer similarity, and a student reporting channel during exams. The school called it an Integrity Improvement Initiative. I called it the Mara Almost Had to Fail Maths Act, privately, to Anika, who laughed so hard she snorted lemonade. My mother cried through the ceremony. She cried when I received the mathematics award. She cried when my scholarship nomination was announced. She cried when Theo received a commendation for academic improvement, and I think that was when I cried too. Not because everything was fixed. One ceremony cannot repair a whole first life. But because this time the stage did not belong to a lie. Elise's name was still in the program for one award she no longer received. They skipped it smoothly, like schools do when reality threatens formatting. I stared at the blank pause where her applause would have been, and thought about my blank test. Blankness had always terrified me. Empty answer spaces, empty bank accounts, empty chairs, empty futures. In finals week, I learned blankness could also be a weapon, a refusal, a mirror turned away. I had handed in nothing and made theft visible. I had given Elise no answers, and without them, she had written her own confession across for exams. After graduation, Ms. Rowe found me near the hall doors. She was holding a folder because some adults are never truly off duty. "Your final mathematics score was adjusted for documented time loss," she said. "You placed second on the paper and first overall for the course." Second on the paper. First overall. In my first life, I would have mourned the imperfect paper. In this one, I laughed. Ms. Rowe smiled slightly. That is not the usual reaction. I lost 46 minutes. Yes. Second is kind of hilarious. Her smile widened. Then she grew serious. "Mara, you took a significant risk. I understand why. But I hope you never feel you have to harm your own chances to be believed again." I looked across the courtyard where students posed for photos, where Theo's friends were pretending to crown him with a rolled program, where my mother was waving me over with mascara streaks on her cheeks. "Me too," I said. And I meant it. Strategy born from desperation is still desperation. I wanted a life where truth did not require self-sacrifice to be audible. Months later, at university orientation, I sat for a placement diagnostic exam in a large lecture theater. The desks were bolted in rows. The paper smelled like fresh ink. A girl behind me asked if she could borrow a pencil, and for one terrible second my whole body went cold. Mirrors, coughs, blank booklet, smoke. Then she added, "Mine broke and I'm panicking," holding up two sad wooden halves. I turned, looked at her desk. No mirror, no polished bottle, just a nervous stranger with bad stationery, and handed her my spare. Boundaries do not mean suspecting everyone forever. They mean noticing, choosing, and not abandoning yourself in the process. The diagnostic began. I wrote my name, opened the paper, and answered question 1.
Not blank this time.
I did not need blankness anymore. Still, I kept the original blank booklet. Ms. Rowe gave me a photocopy after the review, official stamp in the corner, my name on the cover, and every page empty. I framed it above my desk when we moved apartments after the scholarship came through. My mother thought it was a strange thing to frame. Leo said it looked like the world's most threatening homework. They were both right. To anyone else, it was nothing. To me, it was proof that nothing can become something when chosen at the right moment. It reminded me that my worth was not the answers I provided, not the marks I earned, not the usefulness others could extract from my discipline. Sometimes the bravest answer is no answer at all. If this were a cleaner story, I would say the class cheater confessed, apologized, and learned. She did not. Elise sent one message near the end of summer from an unknown number. "You ruined both of us." I stared at it for a long time before replying.
No.
"I stopped letting you use me to ruin only one of us." Then I blocked the number. Maybe she understood one day. Maybe she did not. Her understanding was no longer my assignment. That was another thing finals week taught me. You cannot study for someone else's conscience. On the first day of my scholarship program, the professor asked us to introduce ourselves and share one academic lesson we learned the hard way. Students said time management, asking for help, reading rubrics carefully, not leaving lab reports until midnight. When it was my turn, I almost gave a normal answer. Then I thought of Elise's mirror, Theo's voice, Ms. Rowe's evidence tray, my mother in her pharmacy uniform, and a blank test booklet that had saved a future by looking like failure. "I learned," I said, "that integrity is not just doing your own work. It is refusing to let someone else hide behind yours." The professor nodded. A few students wrote it down. I smiled, opened my notebook, and began taking notes for myself. Only myself. And when roll call reached my name, I answered clearly, without shaking. "Present."